What's going on, everybody? It's Ron Brown, LMT, the People's Fitness Professional, alongside my co-host,
Mikey Fever.
and this is a New Yorker's perspective. We got the God Inky in the building again.
You.
What's going on? What's going on? Hold on, let me see if I got the sound effects right today. No, I don't. No,
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
yeah,
It's all good. It's all good. Let it go. You
I
know what I'm saying?
yo, I
He's
gotta
destroying
figure this out, man.
he's destroying the processed foods, man. That's that sound right there.
Yo, so we're talking about the dangers of processed foods today. I thought that it'll be a great topic to discuss, especially with GMOs out here. Like the food right now in America is like terrible.
Frankenfood.
Yes, sir. So let's go right into it. Inky, the first question I have for you is what are processed foods and how do they differ from whole foods in terms of nutritional value and impact of health?
Man, yo, your questions be super thorough. All right, one more time for the audience because I know I'm still relatively new over here. Um, my camera's right here, but my computer's over here. So when I'm looking at the brother Ron and Mikey, I'm always, I don't, because sometimes people be thinking it'd be a little crazy because I'd be looking, away sometime. But yeah, my monitor, my laptop's over here, so I can see you guys over here. But the camera's over here to see the people. Um, so I guess we should start at the basics. I think that's probably the best way to approach the topic, and probably the most original way, which separates kind of what we do at Melanin versus Diabetes from everybody else. Um, Processed food, the difference between processed food and whole food, if you will, right? Because even the term whole food, like I'm a fan of capitalism. Don't get it twisted. You know what I'm saying? But one of the ill things about it is that everything becomes like a term. You know what I'm saying? So you can't just say something. Like even Whole Food is now like a supermarket. It's you know what I'm saying? So, but for lack of a better term anyway, the difference between processed foods and whole food or natural foods, you know what I'm saying? Natural foods is foods in their natural environment. They come like with everything. Processed food is where things are stripped out and kind of like categorized for repackaging. What I mean by that is, let's say we take a plant. No matter what plant it is, right? Fruit, vegetable, whatever. No matter what plant it is, it's going to have fiber, it's going to have pigment. In between the fiber and pigment is going to be a host of minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, etc. Enzymes. Um, that's a whole nother conversation. Like we're evolving into the only living species on Earth that eats a diet of a food devoid of actual living enzymes. Which is crazy. That's one of the reasons why we have the bitters on our website. The bitters is super crucial in today's time period because we don't really think about the fact that like our food is missing enzymes. Like enzymes help our body to digest the food, and it just adds so much to our diet that it's a crazy, insane, overlooked part of the diet. But all of these things are within the framework of your fiber and your pigment, right? So in between the fiber and the pigment is where all of the life is at. Once you kind of strip away, which is the processing process, the processing process strips away the pigment, strips away the fiber. Once you get rid of those things, and they don't like throw them out, right? They put them on the side so they can sell them separately, right? So once you get rid of that from your food, you're also getting rid of the vitamins, minerals, enzymes, all the good stuff. What you're left with is sugar, right? And so processed food is largely sugar with some amount of added salt and oil to give a semblance of difference so that it looks like you have a bunch of different things on your plate, but you don't. You really just have a plate of different types of sugars. So um, we don't even we don't even position ourselves as vegan promoters or even plant-based promoters anymore. I had to stop my people from pushing that ideology to again differentiate ourselves and refocus people to a pigment based diet, right? Because that to me is should be the central focus of people trying to eat healthy. Like get in a good variety of pigment throughout the day. If you focus in on getting a good variety of pigment in, greens, purples, reds, oranges, yellows, etc., everything else will fall into place by itself nutrition wise, right? And I'm not talking about like macros, but the things that are really more important, which are the micros, because macros can kind of be managed by activity, but micros are what are going to cause deficiencies and later on diseases. So,
Yo, where's that? Got it. Damn. Damn. That's not it either, y'all.
Don't worry. He dropped the bomb on
wait,
them.
It's
yo,
supposed to be
it's
a
not in the process.
Ah, I found it.
That's the food processing. All right. Being that like
You funny.
being that you already, already answered question two, I got a question for you, right? What
Oh
are
wait, I didn't want to do that yet. I didn't want
yeah,
to go into that because what I was gonna ask, right? Pardon me,
yeah.
Mike. Pardon me, brother.
Go ahead, go ahead.
What I was
Let me say this. There's no such as thing as being repetitive when you're discussing, health science or food science or stuff like that. So even if you feel like it's, like it doesn't matter, let's just go through it. You know what
All
I'm
right,
saying?
cool.
real quick though. I want to go into the impact processed foods have on your health.
Right. So when you strip, so here's the thing. Great question. So the body is run by your pigment system. The body is run by your pigment system. The body is run by your pigment system, right? You have melanin concentrating hormone in the brain regulating orexin, leptin, ghrelin, insulin, glucagon, all of those various things that we associate with eating, right? Just on a basic level. Um, on the flip side, you have Palm C, which is going to regulate your stress hormones, your self produced your exogenous opioids and cannabinoids for inflammation and pain management, relaxation, and just the whole host of things runs through your body's pigment system largely and your neurons. So um, when you remove the pigment from the food, you literally cut yourself off at the knees in terms of being able to get your body the right type of nutrition. You know, we can look at fat, sugar, protein, but that doesn't tell any type of story, right? We know sugar is there in some small amounts to provide energy, right? But when we look at protein or amino acids, that is an entire universe that has to expand. When we look at fats, that is an entire universe that has to expand. The brain is made out of fat. Your cell membranes are made out of fat. So fat gets demonized in a lot of these conversations, but we forget that the cell membranes, your brain, a lot of vital tissues are made out of fat. Your myelin sheath, people are getting MS at an accelerated rate right now. That's fat, the myelin sheath. I mean, not alone, but when we look at amino acids, I just put out this book, right? It's
Now
called
bring the book up a
Osiris.
little closer so they can see it, because I can. The light is kind of like throwing it off a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, now we got it. Now we got it. Yeah.
Osiris, diabetes, and respiration. But I got a bunch of books on Amazon anyway, on kind of like all of these things, because dealing with what we were talking about with the food is kind of, so it's a bunch of these books. But the amino acid story is like, it's insane, because you have so many different ways to categorize these things. Some of them are glucogenic, some of them are ketogenic, some of them activate the mTOR system. And when we look at the mTOR system, that's a whole entire universe, because the mTOR system is what tells cells like, okay, let's grow, let's regenerate, let's reproduce, and in a space that is needed, that's like crucial, right? A lot of people spend a lot of time and money on trying to get bigger and bulky or whatever the case may be. But then if you think about cancer, cancer is driven by the same system, gone awry in many instances. So, what we're doing with these amino acids has to become more like, we got to get more artistic with what it is that we're doing. And like we talked about on the previous show, ignoring glycine and proline when those guys make up the majority of the structure of the body. Like yes. So by having to bring it all back, at least hopefully we're making some sense, right? But to have a lot of processed food where the pigments are stripped out, and then going blind is at an all-time high right now. So people are losing their eyesight and their ears. And the reason is because, again, the pigment is stripped out of the food, back, and everything, like, everything is on a time, is on like on a clock, because you can go back to a point where we didn't really understand what was in the eye that allowed us to convert photons to, electrons, if you will, so that we can form images and, so we can see. Then we figured out, okay, so we got pigment in there, you know what I'm saying? And then it was like, okay, well, we got rods and cones, and then it's, rods and cones and melanin. And then it's like rods, cones, melanopsin, iodopsin, this one, that one. Before you know it, it's like 10 different pigments that are, being discussed. And even though the conversation has evolved in terms of how many pigments the body has and how many different jobs these things have, because there was one time where, they only thought of opsins, which are a type of pigments for the people watching, as in being in the eye. Now we know that your melanocytes that make up your skin, regardless of how light or dark you are, and your keratinocytes that make up your skin carry their own opsins. So the pigments that allow you to see are throughout your skin.
Mm.
And some of them are in the body. Like melanopsin is inside of a lot of your blood vessels, right? So, like, what is the impact of like not having these things? And there's one way of looking at it where you go, well, there was a time when people didn't have all this science and they were still healthy. Yeah, but if you go back to that time period, we didn't mess with the food. We just ate the food the way it was. So we didn't really need to know all these different things and big words and concepts and blah, 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 because we ate the food and we drank the water. The water came from the ground and the sky. Like it sounds crazy to be so basic with it, but nowadays the stuff all comes from machines. So it's different. But the water came from the ground and the sky, which means that the water was either super pure or the water was super mineral rich, right? Which gave natural alkalinity that's transferable throughout the body, right? Because unless the alkalinity in water is based on bicarbonates and minerals, it's not transferable throughout the body. And then we ate the food the way it was supposed to be, the way nature intended. So it had all the pigments to it, the minerals, the vitamins. More importantly, they didn't create a whole bazillion-dollar industry out of fiber, right? Because that's what basically what. So the fiber has went crazy, right? We didn't even touch on the fiber really yet, but the fiber has turned into a bazillion-dollar industry because now you're selling people probiotics, right? And you're selling probiotics, which is largely a scam, right? Because if your body condition is in a way that you're either killing off the good, quote unquote, good bacteria, or you're turning the good bacteria into bad bacteria, right? Because your bacteria are living in poverty. See, at any level of living, as above, so below. So what they thought of at one time as good versus bad bacteria, they come into the conclusion that it's basically how you treat your bacteria, how they behave. If your bacteria live in relative, I ain't gonna say abundance, but if they have the resources available to them, then they're all kind of good bacteria. So when they came to that realization, they said, oh, okay, so we know what to do with the probiotic problem because probiotics weren't really working. It's like putting people to jump into a volcano. You know what I'm saying? The volcano would just sizzle you up, the lava. You know what I'm saying? So if your body doesn't support bacteria or good bacteria, when you consume them, they just die in there or they turn into bad bacteria. So when they figured out the problem, the solution was to feed them. Make sure that all the bacteria you're consuming have their own food supply. So they start coupling probiotics with prebiotics. So now you can go buy you a $40 bottle of probiotics and then another $40 bottle of prebiotics. No. If you have the fiber, that fiber feeds the bacteria. It's all in the so that's how the food supposed to. So the fiber, first of all, the plants are supposed to come from soil that's not sterilized. When you have soil that's not sterilized, the plants, the fruits and the vegetables will provide you with probiotics. This is why they've done tests on people that work farms versus people that live in urban settings, and they always have a much more diverse probiotics or bacteria in their body, which gives them a more robust immune system because they're more in touch with the soil and the parts of the soil that we want to wash off, right? The dirt. And so the food came out that way. So it made us have a much more diverse, rich probiotic community, which gave us a much more robust immune system. And the fiber from the very same plants fed the probiotics that, like, everything was there, right? But again, you don't get to sell that vegetable, for instance, like that in the whole sense multiple times. So if I process this one vegetable, I can create like the boxed food, the sugary boxed foods out of it and sell you that. Then I can package the vitamins in this thing and sell you that. Then I can package the antioxidants out of this vegetable and sell you that. Then I can package this fiber as powder and sell you that. Then I can package the pigments out of this vegetable and sell you, lutein, zeaxanthin, and blah, 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 blah. I can sell you that. So I can sell you this one vegetable like 15 times by processing it up.
Right. What do you think about for probiotics? What do you think about the remedy of fermented foods to fix the gut health?
Well, I'm a fan now. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not a fan of probiotics. But I don't think that I'm not a fan of a lot of fermented food.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of a lot of fermented food.
I know kombucha is not something you like, or I don't know. I forgot how that conversation went.
Kombucha is just not good. I mean, you think about this. All we got to do is look up the kombucha story. If we look up the kombucha story, we will stray away from kombucha on our own. Like when I forgot whether it was World War I or World War II, whatever it was, a part of the after war was our soldiers were complaining that the guys they were fighting, their rations taste way better. So we got with their government, I believe it was Japan, I think, and we got with their government to figure out, like reparations, how we can piece things out. And one of the things that we wanted was the secret to how their soldiers' rations taste so fresh, even though they was out in the field for months and had the same type of low quality packaging on the rations as our soldiers did, whatever. Their stuff tasted fresh no matter when they ate it. And so the secret of that was MSG. And so we started to subsidize MSG and put MSG in everything, including baby foods and all that.
Damn.
And as
dangerous.
Yeah. And as, children and babies and people started to have bad reactions to it, they started to pull back from the MSG and say, okay, well, it's cool for this, but not for that. And don't put it over there and don't put it over there and blah, 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 blah. But what people forgot in that whole history of MSG is that MSG is the kombucha extract. Like kombucha was the source of the MSG all this time. So in my mind, I can't understand having a problem with the extract and then deciding that as a health tonic, I should have the whole plant. Like that to me is like literally just insane, right? But then to take it a step further, commercial enterprises have interceded on kombucha, and they don't even base kombucha anymore on the plant. Kombucha is largely, it comes from a like a type of like a snot biscuit. Like it literally looks like a snot biscuit, that they and if people saw what it starts out as, like they wouldn't do it. You know what I'm saying?
So
But
it's basically is a processed,
hold
marketed scam, basically.
Okay, hold on, because we can't just do it like that. I think it's good for us to see maybe what I'm saying. Maybe if I can pull it up, I think I'm gonna pull it up here, and then we'll be able to look at it. And then if we look at it, because the thing is, a lot of times commercial interests drive health trends when people can make a few dollars. Like when the Cajun machines came out, I was the Lone Ranger out here saying, yo, life didn't come out of a machine, bro. We don't like Cajun machine is not the answer to our water situations. Like that's not necessarily the way to go. And if you were to look at what they do with this yeast thing, like it's like you buy like a little fungus patty, and because it's so cheap, and then you can just like reproduce it in like your bathtub or a bucket, or like you could just, people are doing at home, versions of it. And people are doing at home versions of a lot of stuff, herbs, sea mosses, whatever the case may be. But I just think that if, the idea of the kombucha, knowing the whole MSG history, and then just, looking at it, to me, turns my stomach.
Hmm.
So it's not something that I'm attracted to.
It tastes nasty though. I'll be getting issues.
So this is what kombucha actually is. Now, when you go to a health food store, the bottles look very sexy. The packaging looks very sexy. But in actuality, what it really is not that sexy, And so if if this is what it is for you, like, I can't, but this
It
that
looks
ain't,
like snot, man.
yeah, that ain't, that ain't it for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's no longer based on the original kombucha, which is a form of kelp. So it was actually a kelp that they were doing with making tea out of it.
Hmm.
And from there, they started to ferment it. And then from there, like, it just got crazier and crazier, going back to our original conversation, processing food. So
Hmm.
this starts out as a tea, then it becomes a fermented thing, right? Which is basically the process of decay or rotten or going bad. In case people don't know what fermenting means, because when we talk about food, a lot of times people have, I'm not going to say cognitive dissonance, but they've compartmentalized the idea of food rotting and fermenting as if they're two separate things. It's the same thing. If you leave out a piece of meat on your counter and it starts to rot and smell and bugs and stuff, that's fermenting, the rotting. That's that. If you leave out some fruit and you cut into it like an apple or something, and you start to see that the inside where it's white starts to go brown and turns black, and then bugs and all that, that's your fermenting process. You know what I'm saying? So the only thing that we traditionally fermented for nutritive or medicinal purposes was certain herbs, right? And largely that's because there are a lot of plants that have nutrition locked in them that we can't get to
Oh, man,
unless.
I have so many questions, brother. I don't mean to cut your wisdom. Um, so fermented foods you're not a fan of, but
But some, within reason.
within reason. So, but to kind of like go back to processed foods, well, we are talking about processed foods. The way that the body process foods, right? So after ingesting food, et cetera, the anatomy, it goes through the stomach, blah blah blah, small intestine. Small intestine is where the nutrients is extracted, if you will, for lack of a better term, right? So when you're eating processed foods and it passes through the small intestine, what happens in that small
Well,
intestine? I mean,
before you get there, right? So
yeah.
here's a problem. Um, and I kind of wanted to touch on Otto Warburg, because Otto Warburg got a Nobel Prize for figuring out the relationship of fermentation to
Mhm.
cancer. And a problem with brown and black people is that we have more pronounced type 2 fast twitch muscle, which puts us at a, like a, almost like a pre, like we're almost, that type of muscle only likes, only uses energy based on glycolysis. So we got to be careful with the idea of fermented stuff in general, period, especially people that are not really, that don't really exercise that much, right? But going back to the movement, melanin versus diabetes, right? That's our movement for the people that are watching and may not know. Um, your pancreas, right? So the tricky thing about the pancreas is this. In the quote unquote hood or just in the everyday universe, everyday, we're going John Q public. We think of the pancreas as the insulin machine. The pancreas makes insulin for the body can break down sugar, right? But that's wrong.
Oh, what?
The pancreas is a double organ. So the pancreas is like complex and super vital. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't really get the light that it deserves. But so the pancreas is a double organ or double gland anyway. So it has endocrine function and exocrine function. The
Okay.
endocrine function is where it makes the insulin, right?
Mhm.
But that's literally less than 5% of the pancreas is dedicated to that process.
Wow.
95% of the pancreatic function is exocrine. And that exocrine function is primarily to, like, how to make it simple. Like, I don't want to say alkalize. Well, yeah. You like basically just alkalize the incoming stuff, incoming food, like to make it palatable, so to speak. It's your front line of defense for everything that you eat. Now, the more low quality the food that we eat, the more that pancreas has to overwork to constantly produce these digestive alkaline juices, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of the abuse that the beta cells, which are the primary cells that make up the endocrine part of the pancreas to do the insulin functions and all that,
Mhm.
they get beat up because it's almost like the process of chemo, right? So chemo, the idea behind chemo is if a person has cancer somewhere, they can blast that area with chemo. And because the cancer cells are so few and the healthy cells are so many, when they kill all the cells in that area, the healthy cells will repopulate and the cancer cells will be gone.
Mhm.
The inflammation serves as a blast of chemo to your pancreas because you have 95% of that tissue in the pancreas is exocrine tissue. So when inflammation gets in there and starts wreaking havoc, that part of the pancreas is not going to really be affected. But the beta cells are going to be toe up. So a lot of times overtaxing the exocrine aspect of the pancreas destroys the endocrine side of the pancreas. So before we even get to like downstream where the nutrients is, going through, I guess, the portal vein or whatever the case may be to get to the body or whatever, that part right there is crucial. You know what I'm saying? And then the duodenum, like, the stomach and the duodenum
Mhm.
suffer because, again, like I was saying earlier, we don't really have enzymes, right? So because we're not having enzymes with every meal, like our body struggles to break this stuff down. And then we wind up having like chlorine problems, which, you know, um, I guess they may have tried to solve with table salt because they combine, chlorine with sodium to make table salt. But people wind up craving more and more chlorine, thinking that they craving salt because your mind kind of gets, when it's craving something, you just crave whatever your body knows as a source of a thing.
Right.
So if your body knows that table salt is a source of chlorine, when you need more chlorine, your body's going to say you need more salt. So you might wind up having a lot more salt than you need for your sodium requirements. You know, like it gets crazy with the chemistry, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, you start overtaxing certain things that we overlook just by little changes in processing the food. We don't have enzymes, so now we've got to make up with that. We're trying to be more, you know, have more acid to break the food down into, you know, and then overtax the pancreas, you know, like so it gets it gets crazy from there. And then when those things, in order for everything to work, stuff is required, right? So now that the pancreas is getting taxed, you know, you have this insane requirement for vitamin A, you know, that's like almost unquenchable. Um, so I like, to be honest, these weird things is how we put together like our herbs on the website, like based on all these wild nutrient requirement combinations to fight these situations. Because when you start taxing an area of the body, whatever that area is that's overworking is going to require more of whatever it is using to do that job.
So you would recommend herbs as opposed to vitamins, like actual vitamin over the counter vitamins?
Well, definitely, I would say probably a combination of the two, but
Okay.
just keeping in mind that herbs have the vitamins in it.
Right.
So remember, we go back to the processed food concept. The plants are the source of the vitamins. So they take the vitamins out of the plant and put it in a bottle, you know, a part of processing the food. Whereas when you get the herbs, you're getting, you know, most herbs are, you know, wild. And so you got all that kind of in there. Now, the one thing, which is why I do both, you know what I'm saying, in my personal life, herbs and vitamins, is because the vitamin is going to be a concentration. So you'll get like a much larger dose of whatever that thing is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then some plants, you know, may have scant amount of this or that. So you got to make up for it. But the thing is, going back to the enzymes, right? The herbs, depending on what that herb is rich in. So if you have herbs rich in these type of vitamins or these type of minerals, well, that herb is also going to be rich in the enzymes and all the other things to help your body to process those particular nutrients, right? Because you need those. Like people talk about iron, for instance, and they go, oh, well, you know, if you have phytic acid, you know, the phytic acid, you know, messes up the iron and then your body can't absorb the iron. Yeah, but you know, if you have vitamin C with the iron, then the phytic acid is not a problem with the. So when you have the whole plant, you don't get into this thing of this and that and blah 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 because it's all in there. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference. That's the major difference with plant-based protein versus animal-based. When your body breaks down animal flesh, there's a lot of ammonia and acid and hard stuff that your body has to deal with. So to buffer all of those acids, your body's got to pull now bicarbonates and phosphates and things like that, which stress other areas of the body, the bones, the kidney, this and that. When you have
Information.
when you have plant-based proteins, the plants have the thing that they just told you was a monster, the phytic acid. The phytic acid is God's protection, you know, to buffer against all of those different acids from your metabolism. So that's largely the difference with plant-based versus, so, you know, if you eat meat, you just have to have the greens or whatever, the, you know, but then they say, oh, well, you can't digest greens. Maybe that's not the purpose. Maybe the purpose is to break that down and to buffer some of these other things and, you know, like the chemistry of it.
Yeah.
So that's where the stuff gets a little bit crazy. But no, I'm a fan of um like everybody working together. I'm not like a herbs or vitamins guy. I'm a herbs and vitamins guy. I'm not like the natural path or the doctor. I'm the doctor and the natural path. Like I think that everybody has, something that they can bring to the table and help, us go forward as a species. You know what I'm saying? Like all of the tools. That's one of the things that's taught in masonry. You know what I'm saying? Your working tools. I think that you can do a better job when you have more working tools, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I have a question. Before my bad, Ron. Which is better for the gym? Regular protein whey or that vegan protein?
I would go with vegan protein.
Vegan
I
protein,
would.
right?
I honestly would say,
I wouldn't go with powder. And period.
Powder. Stay
I
with the
would. I
powder.
wouldn't go with powder. Period. I would go with food.
Food.
well, again, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna
Bro.
say everything, because depending on your lifestyle and
Right.
depending on what your requirements are,
Mhm.
you may and budget, you may not be able to get everything from food. So
Mhm.
you may need you some powders, you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
then when you get into the world of powders, you got
You
like
got to do your research.
budget, yeah, budget. Well, budget really matters. What kind of money you got to spend, like that really is impactful, because if you can't afford it, a high quality whey protein would probably be best. But
High quality.
yeah,
But that costs money though.
yeah, but not as much as necessarily per se a high quality hemp with a high quality pea protein, because you really kind of need the hemp and the pea protein together to give you a good, like to give you what you need. You know
Or
what I'm
like a good amino acid profile.
saying? Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's hard to keep that stuff up. You know what I'm saying? Like it's hard to keep that stuff up. It's easy to go down to the supermarket and grab it one time for the one time. You know what I'm saying? But that, like, people got to realize your health or your what we call dysfunction, like it doesn't go by one time. So people that think that, you went and got you a green smoothie one time, like that don't mean nothing. You just had a treat. Like that's not, it didn't boost your health or hurt. Like you just had a treat. That wasn't it. It's like smoking one cigarette. If you never smoked cigarettes in your life and you had a cigarette, that cigarette is not going to give you cancer. It's not going to do anything. It probably give you a headache. You take a nap, you wake up, boom, it's out of your life. You know what I'm saying? You just had a cigarette. Your body is so resilient that one thing is not gonna, you know, it's what you do consistently.
Consistent.
It's what you do consistently. Working out once or twice or even 1 month is not gonna matter in this grand scheme of your life. You know what I'm saying? It's what you do consistently. So when you're looking at a lot of these things, like we got a detox that, is 21 days and people are supposed to have it every month. It's a monthly thing. 21 days out of every month you're supposed to take it. And it's not necessarily something that's like, it's not geared to making people poop. It's more so geared to keeping your lymphatic system clean and your NRF2 system running.
Mhm.
But it's consistency. You know what I'm saying? If you did it one time, it's not you got to do it consistently. So budget becomes a thing. You know what I'm saying? And with the protein powders, it really comes down to what you can maintain, consistently. They got a nice one out there. It's called Humor Pro. I tried it a couple times. I liked it. I used it, but it's a little pricey.
I want
There's a
to.
lot of different. Go ahead.
I just want to put this up there. See, like stuff. This right here, I use this plant protein. But my issue with it is all of these ingredients.
Now, see, that's another game right there, because a lot of times with the proteins, and this is whether it's plant or not,
Mhm.
what they slap on the front of it is the amount of protein per serving, right?
Right.
And the first hustle is you don't know what that is per dollar. See, I'm a single dad of 10 children with a deadbeat baby mother, a stone cold deadbeat. You know
Damn.
what I'm saying? Like she ain't, yeah, she ain't sent them $1 for a pair of socks or a slice of bread in God knows how long. You know what I'm saying? So everything for me has to be like budget. It gotta come down to budget. So even with me writing books or making products, I always think about other people's budgets first, because that's how I want people to do me. Think about think about affordability, because also as a parent, you shouldn't be doing anything for yourself health wise that you're not also doing for your children.
Right.
You look insane having green this and super salad and all these crazy foods, and then you hit the kids with the Happy Meal. Like, that's insane. You know what I'm saying? Like, it got to go all the way around. If there's 4 people at home, 4 people got to have some of that smoothie protein. That protein shake got to have 4 servings. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when I look at these things, I notice the first hustle be, what is the grams of protein per dollar? Meaning, you might look on the front of it and it might say 20 grams per serving or 25 grams per serving. Then you turn it around and the joint might say 3 scoops is 1 serving. So now you go to yourself like, wait a minute, how much servings per container is this? If it's 3 scoops and each scoop is, and the container's only, wait a minute, I'm gonna have to buy this damn thing 4 times a week in order to like it don't add up, because you got to think, how many times am I going to the gym? I'm going to the gym 4 times, 5 times a week. I'm gonna need this at least twice a day. The kids might need it once a day. My queen, she might need it twice a week or 3 times. You got to factor that in. What does dollar look like? So the first thing I look for is the match. I wanted to say 1 scoop on the back. 1 scoop. Whatever the front say, I want it to be 1 scoop in the back. Period. If it say 20 grams or 30 grams per serving, I want that to be per scoop. I don't want to look around the back and see that joint say 2, 3, 4 scoops, because then I know you didn't went crazy on me with the price. Then I want to compare the ratio of protein to the amount of sugar that I gotta have to deal with this protein.
Right.
I need that thing to be 1 gram, or like something low, 2 grams maybe, or like. And so a lot of times that's how they're priced. You notice that the lower the price of the protein, the more sugar you're going to get with your serving. You know what I'm saying? So
Nothing
so
but fat, straight
yeah,
fat.
yeah. So that dollar thing be an issue. Like, for people that you're getting bread and you want to buy, you know, and when I say bread, I actually mean bread. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for people that are getting bread in the supermarket, the bread industry exploded. I want to say like 15 years ago, when they start coming out with all these superfoods to hustle folks. Um, they start coming out with like $5 and $6 and $7 loaves of bread. And these loaves of bread, I ain't gonna hold you. Some of them are just as good as the 99-cent loaf of bread. I kid you
That's
not.
true.
Because the main problem with the bread is that bread is going to turn. I mean, there's other stuff like bromines and some other stuff like that, but the main problem with the bread is that the bread is going to turn right into sugar soon as you eat it. So the main thing that you need to look for with your bread is how many grams of fiber per slice. You know what I'm saying? That's what you want to look at. And then compare that with the sugar. So the same way with the protein powder, you go in protein versus sugar. The same thing you want to do with your bread. You want to go fiber versus sugar. And if you ain't even got like 3 grams of fiber per slice, it's trash. You know what I'm saying? And they got some breads out there that's like $5 a bag, and them jokers got, you know, like it's like a 1-to-1 ratio, fiber and sugar.
Fiber.
Oh, don't forget, you're saying sugar. Don't forget about sodium, though.
Yeah, sodium is an issue, but not really. I'm gonna tell you the problem with sodium.
They pack it with sodium.
But here, no, listen, let me tell you the scam with sodium. Sodium gets a bad rap. Sodium is kind of good for you, but here's the problem. It's, look, remember, chemistry.
Right.
That's why I be putting out all these books. That's why I be putting out all these books. I be trying to tell people, go to Amazon, Enqi Real, get the books. Melanin versus Diabetes, volume 1-4. Get the Race Hustler series, volume 1-6. Get the Divine Mathematics, the Algorithm, Enqi. Like, get the books, because you need to have this information. It's a lot of hustling that's going on. And, you know, sometimes my books go out of print and then you can't find the book no more. And that's it. So if you don't get them while they're there, it's a wrap. You know what I'm saying? But the problem with sodium starts back with, what's this guy's name? Richard Nixon and Joe Biden, right?
Wait.
Richard Nixon.
Oh, you talking about Joe Biden back in the days? Okay.
Yeah. Well, Joe Biden today is Joe Biden from back in the days. It's the same guy. You know what I'm saying? But he was Richard Nixon's little homie. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't realize a lot of the racial crazy stuff that Richard Nixon was on, you know, he trained up Joe Biden. So he passed the thing, and then Joe Biden copied him with the crime bill and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, out of that same group of politicians, Richard Nixon and Biden and the boys, they fixed for the lobbyists the nutrition, because the doctors and scientists, they was cracking down on sugar and the dangers of excess sugar, and how, what's the number? It's like a number that they have for how much sugar each person on average consumes throughout the year. And they was noticing that that number was going up crazy. And as that number was going up, you know, diabetes and cancers and things like that was going up. Now, there's people that benefit from that. You know, there's people that benefit from you getting sick. You know what I'm saying? There's an industry, you know. So, you know, and then there's people that benefit from the sale of sugary stuff, right? So they spend that bread, and the lobbyists get the lobbying, and all of a sudden, you know, Richard Nixon and the crew, they come out with this food pyramid where, you know, sugar's at the apex of it, and, you know, sugar's not really the bad guy, moderation, and, you know, salt is really the you know, enemy. We really got to crack down on salt, and that's not it. The problem with salt is we don't understand. Again, oh, you know what? Back to the topic of the show. That's the problem with salt, processed food. Because
salt.
remember, so remember, processed food, they remove the fiber and the pigment, and that removes everything in between. So what's in between the fiber and the pigment? The vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants, the enzymes, etc. Right? So the plants, every plant is like every plant, and remember, plants, fruits and vegetables, but also are herbs. Herbs are nothing more than salad, right? So each plant has a different combination of things in it. Minerals, this one, that one, blah, blah, blah. And it has the minerals and vitamins in the right combinations to balance each other. And the enzymes needed to metabolize them, and all of that kind of stuff, right? So the problem with salt or sodium in specific, right? We won't deal with the table salt idea, right? Because that's it's a whole nother problem, right? But the problem with sodium is that it's now uncoupled from potassium. So the same way you're supposed to have what is that, omega-3 and omega-6 in the right ratio, right? Like omega-6 by itself is not harmful. It only becomes harmful when it's not coupled with the right ratio to omega-3, right? And then that becomes a little bit more complex because omega-3 is different types of omega-3, EPA, DHA. And so a lot of what's for sale on the market is EPA because it has a longer shelf life and it's cheaper than DHA, but DHA is the one you actually need for your brain and your cells and blah, 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 blah. But so the sodium is not problematic. It's the fact that we're not getting enough potassium to go with the sodium. You're supposed to have at least 4 times as much potassium as sodium, and you don't have a problem. So even if you had like 100 pounds of sodium in a day, right? Obviously, that's exaggerating. But if you had somehow were able to eat 400 pounds of potassium to go along with it, your body would be able to metabolize that without a problem. You know what I'm saying? So it's the ratio. When you uncouple it, the way it is naturally packaged, sodium and potassium together in the natural foods, you Gucci. You don't got to worry. So I don't add any salt to my stuff. You know what I'm saying? Rarely do I season with salts. You know what I'm saying? Like if I want that salty taste, I have like kelp and I'll add kelp to it or whatever the case may be. But I rarely do the salts by itself. Right.
So let's talk about salt, right? So sodium, because now we're talking about the chemistry. Sodium and potassium. So sodium and potassium. Potassium it helps with intercellular hydration. Potassium and sodium helps with extracellular hydration.
Yeah, but together you got the sodium potassium ion exchange, which is like an electricity, you know, like it's almost like a little power station on your cells. So they kind of work together.
Right.
So you got to have them in the right ratio or it gets crazy. And then if you think about the regular natural behavior of sodium, right? The regular natural behavior of sodium is to pool water.
Right.
So when you start getting too much sodium by itself, your kidney is supposed to balance the fluids in your body. So you're going to have kidney issues. But then your tissues, you're going to have pockets maybe that pop up where you storing water, you know, and that's edema. You know what I'm saying? So you may have people you training that think that they dealing with, oh, I want to get this weight down or whatever, but you might have some, so, you know, just stuff like that to deal with.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one real quick. Let me see. The next question. Okay, so you diabetes, melanin diabetes. Um, First off, this is off right now off the top of my head, like just looking at this question right now. Now, melanin diabetes, right? Melanin versus diabetes. Someone who has a lower concentration of melanin, so like Europeans, if you will, um, would that affect the way they process food or the way they extract the nutrients from food?
Yeah, well, it makes them less susceptible to the same bad food. so meaning, and this is just like a super simplified way of thinking of it. If me and my white twin, my white duplicate, were exactly the same in every way, right? Me and him have 10 pounds of cotton candy a piece. You know what I'm saying? And we have this maybe every day for a week or a month or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
My body is going to feel the toxic effects way before his. So it's not to say that it's not going to affect him the same way. It's going to hit him the exact same way.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing is, it's going to hit me months or maybe years before it hits him.
Mm.
Because he doesn't have the type 2 muscle fibers the same way. His mitochondria respiratory proteins don't necessarily function the same way. So it's just going to impact me a little bit more, a lot, a lot faster. So, if we look at the numbers, there's plenty of white folks that have type 2 diabetes. They coming down with the same stuff from eating the same diet. They just don't have the rate and the speed and the ratio that it's affecting us as it's affecting them. So it's not a matter of, because there's nobody on earth that doesn't have melanin. The popular concept is because we so dark, we got melanin, and quote unquote white folks don't have melanin. No, you either have pheomelanin or you have eumelanin. Everybody is melanined up, period. You know what I'm saying? You got pheomelanin or eumelanin. And then on top of that, everybody that brain works has neuromelanin. And neuromelanin is what controls your habits. So when we talk about the addictive nature of foods and drugs and things like that, that's literally targeting the dopaminergic neurons, which are the dopamine-based neurons in the brain that actually are the neuromelanin. So everybody has melanin everywhere. Melanin concentrating hormone. Everybody has melanin stimulating hormone. Everybody has some form of external melanin, whether it's pheomelanin or eumelanin, and everybody has neuromelanin. So it just, the type 2 fast twitch muscles different. The hormone cascades are slightly different. The mitochondria function and the way we break things down, and the preference of the things based on our environment, our background, right? So if we come from, if we're eumelanin dominant, that means we come from equatorial environments. Primarily, we ate a lot of plants, a lot of grains. If we come from cold places, we ate a lot of meats, a lot of fats, a lot of milk, so, you notice a lot of black folks, quote unquote, lactose intolerant, that concept, you know what I'm saying? Like, so just a lot of small differences that play a role over time, that our self-care needs to be different. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that are the same. Like if we fall off a skateboard and bust our head, it don't matter whether you're Chinese, Haitian, Jamaican, like you still gonna need stitches. You know what I'm saying? But when you get into some of the finer nuanced stuff, it got to be different. Like we have the most issues with heart disease, but we have the lowest levels of natural cholesterol. So now, if you think about that in terms of like the statin drugs, which are for, blood pressure control and heart disease primarily, well, those things block, the body from making cholesterol. But black folks already have lower cholesterol than everybody. So clearly, clearly, that's not the issue. And when you take into consideration the other things that your body needs cholesterol for, like cholesterol is the substrate for testosterone and vitamin D. So now when you block cholesterol, you might think you're protecting somebody from this, but you may open the door to all kinds of other problems that, based on low testosterone. Now maybe the hair starts falling out, maybe their penis stops working, if they can't get cholesterol. Because see, So cholesterol is the thing. So when we go out in the sun, right? Let's just do the vitamin D thing real quick. When we go out in the sun, it's UVB specifically that allows our body to make vitamin D. But that process is we've got to absorb the UVB, right, safely, which is a melanin thing, right? Because if you absorb in too much UV, depending on your pigment, you're gonna get problems before you get health, right? So you got to absorb the UVB, and then that UVB has to act on cholesterol for your body to make vitamin D. So it's the UVB plus cholesterol that your body is able to make vitamin D from. So if there's no cholesterol, you could be buck naked on the beach at the equator forever and you still don't make vitamin D. So all of the things that are downstream of vitamin D that they talk about, you know, the benefits for your bone health, your teeth, your immune system and all that's out the window if you're taking the statin drugs. And, you know, so you need the statin drugs. And then also now, if you have those things, you need to make sure you're getting enough vitamin D supplementation because, and it's not to say if you're taking statin drugs, stop taking them. But what I'm, you know, just make sure that you're also getting enough vitamin D in, because light exposure, whether it's sunlight or fake light or whatever, is not going to produce vitamin D in you at the adequate levels if you don't have cholesterol. Like cholesterol is not a monster. It has a job. It does, you know, you need cholesterol. And then also cholesterol makes that myelin sheath again to protect your nerves and your neurons. So if it just, whenever you start messing around in there, there's always a pro and a con, which is the reason why herbs can have a good effect where sometimes medicine has a different type of, you know, like herbs are more slow acting. That's how I describe them. Medicine's more fast acting. That's why I'm not a person that's against medicine, or, you know, I'm not herb or medicine. I'm both, you know what I'm saying? Depending on the situation. What you got, Mikey? I still can't hear you. You're still muted
Mike
somehow.
with that Obama mic. I gotta get you sometime, bro. He can't talk.
We're gonna throw a flag on Ron. That's a 10-yard penalty.
What happened was I pulled the wire. You saying about cholesterol? What you said is very true because there are times that I heard in the past if you get angry enough, your body releases that cholesterol, and there's times like it'll become coagulated if it doesn't flow anymore. Then you'll have high cholesterol.
Your microphone is fighting against you right now.
Go, nah, Mike. Go ahead, go ahead. I heard you. Say it again. Say it again, bro.
They say cholesterol, like say somebody gets in an intense situation, your body, adrenaline starts to rush. The cholesterol, your body releases cholesterol, right? Does that, like, for instance, if you don't, like, you just get angry, does that raise your blood pressure as well? The cholesterol?
Well, so here's the thing with getting angry,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not as much as cholesterol as, man, it's a whole can of worms, bro.
Yeah.
I actually was just talking about this in the new book, the Osiris and Respiration book. But so this starts off with I guess a misinterpretation of language, right? Sympathetic. When we think of sympathetic, we think of like something that's nice to us. You know, but our sympathetic nervous system is not nice to us. You know what
At
I'm
all.
saying? A lot of us are dying because of our sympathetic nervous system.
All right.
And so we've overstimulated it. You know what I'm saying? And so a part of that is people have temporary, what I call, I came up with this. I made this up, but it's accurate to the thing. Temporary diabetes is what you have every time you get angry. You have a little bout of miniature diabetes. And the reason is because when cortisol floods through your body, cortisol, it pulls out all the sugar into your body because fight or flight is emergency survival, you know. And in emergency survival, your body has to have mad energy available, not only for your brain, but for your muscles to do whatever. This is how people get that strength out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? It's the cortisol releasing all the sugar and then the adrenaline acting secondarily. But the adrenaline can't act without the sugar. And one of the problems what they see when they do the autopsies and look at people's heart after heart failure is they see a lot of like lactic acid build up, but that shouldn't be in the heart. That's only there when the heart switches to using like a lot of sugar as energy, which happens during these moments. You know what I'm saying? Other than that, your heart prefers like ketones, fatty acids, and your heart is really efficient at energy and cleanup and all that. So lactic acid is but anyway, so the cortisol releases all this sugar in the body, and that's really the main thing. You know what I'm saying? You have too much sugar floating around with the cortisol, and it like so, and then the heart overworking, and you know that's the main thing. Cholesterol, like I said, cholesterol just gets a bad rap. Cholesterol is like red herring back in the days in the Scooby-Doo shows. You know what I'm saying? It's always getting blamed for other stuff that it ain't have nothing to do, you know. Even when you think about like plaque buildup. The plaque buildup is not really about cholesterol. It's more about um, a break in the electrical integrity of your veins and arteries. So now your body has to try to repair that area so that you don't get a rupture. So all of your veins and arteries have it's electrical, it's electromagnetic in the way that it functions. It's really magical, right? Um, so you know that's how red blood, like nobody ever really thinks about this, but you got red blood cells that flow through capillaries that have a smaller diameter than the red blood cells themselves. And nobody really ever wonders how it is that the red blood cells are able to fit through. And if they're bigger than the tunnel they got to go through, it's because the tunnel literally like widens as the red blood cells go through it because of the like charges repelling. So when that system is messed up because something is off with the minerals and all that, your body needs to patch that area up because rupture is like death. So your discomfort is like not a big thing. You know what I'm saying? They got to protect it. So calcium needs to be applied, and then you know fats need to be there. So you got the cholesterol and the lipids, and the calcium will go to that area to cover it up. Now the problem is once you get cholesterol and lipids, you got white blood cells that's greedy, right? And so white blood cells will come around and start munching. And then the white blood cells will turn into like these. Remember Ghostbusters? Remember the marshmallow man?
Yeah. Yep.
White blood cells do that. I kid you not. You can look it up at home. They turn into what's called a foam cell. FOAM. Yeah, FOAM foam cells. And is really just, and they get big, big, big. And so a lot of time it's the white blood cells that really make the mess in those areas that we attribute to the lipids or the cholesterol themselves, or the lipids that carry the cholesterol, but it's really the foam cells that make the mess there.
Got you.